Hi all, welcome to Selenium with Java June 2021 Modeling Online Training Session 1. So myself Haradhan, having close to 15 years of experience in automation testing. So we will be having total 30-hour sessions in upcoming weekend. So it will be 15 to 16 sessions. Each session will be 2 hours. Session timing will be Saturday and Sunday Indian morning time 7 to 9 am IST, whereas session timing will be Friday and Saturday evening time 8:30 to 10:30 pm CST. So today's topic, right, I will try to cover what is the objective of training, right, what are the topics will be covered, what are the additional benefit you can get from training, introduction of software testing and automation testing, introduction to Selenium WebDriver, how we can set up Eclipse WebDriver, and how we can create our first test case with the help of Selenium WebDriver, and what is web element and element locator techniques all about, how we can identify and perform operations on web page, browsers, web edit box and link. So this is the online training session: Selenium WebDriver, automation framework, TestNG, Page Object Model, Maven, Jenkins and basic and advanced Java. Okay, so it will be 2-month durations, it will be only weekends and June to July. So after session is over, I will be sending the PPT, whatever will be shared in the sessions. I will be sharing the codes and I will be uploading that video, recorded video in my channel, YouTube channels, and that will be provided to all of you. Once the sessions, complete session is over, I will be sending 600 plus interview question and answer from all the area, which will help you to clear your doubt and to clear your interview in the any organization, because that is your main important thing. Model will be Google Meet. So from the Selenium WebDriver, I will try to cover these topics. So whatever already mentioned in today's session, apart from that, I will also let you know what is CSS selector and dynamics, but how can you create it, how can you capture screenshot, how can you handle cookies, right, all this stuff. And from Java, what is data type, variables, array, and what are the different loops, statement, right, what is the ops concept, what is the collection framework, what is multi-threading. And for TestNG, I will let you know how you can do the installation setup for TestNG, what are the annotations, what are the assertions, right, how you can run multiple suites at the same time, how you can do the parameterization, how you can use data provider and listeners. And in the Maven, how can you create a Maven project, how you can use Maven repository, how you can use the profiling, what is snapshot out about. And in the automation framework, right, I will let you know the importance framework to use, what is data driven framework, keyword driven framework, and how to create a new project with the help of hybrid framework and page object model from the scratch level, where we will use Apache POI, Log4j, Report-ng, extend report. And in the Jenkins, I will let you know what is CI/CD, continuous integration or continuous testing all about, how you can install Jenkins, how you can create your admin user, how you can integrate Jenkins with Git and Maven project, how you can create the build, and how you can create 5-line, and what is notification and reporting all about. So these are the 110 different topics and subtopics will be covered in the upcoming session. So it will take close to 30 hours time. So it will take 15 to 16 days. So it will hopefully it will take 8 weekends. Okay. So that is the agenda for today. So before that, though it is specific to automation testing training, right? So but still I will try to highlight the basic software testing part, but it will be purely automation testing. In case you do not have any knowledge on the software testing or manual testing, you can go through some of the document, or if you think that you will require some specific training, you can let me know, so that I will, in the meantime, I can provide some training additionally as well. So in the IT industry, there will be several teams will be there, right? One is the development team, one is the testing team, one is the business analyst team, right? One is the leadership team, one is the maintenance team. So development team responsibility is to develop the product, whereas business analyst team responsibility is to develop the requirement, right, with the dealing with the client. So whatever client will say, they will convert it to the requirement. And testing team responsibility to certify the product, right, whether those are matching with the requirement or not. And the support team responsibility to support the ongoing in the real time. Suppose a product already developed by the development team and it's certified by the testing team, and then it already went to the production environment, it's working in real time. But in real time also some problem can come, right? So those problems need to fix, so those will come as part of warranty or the support project. Okay. So what is software testing? Software testing is nothing but the process of evaluating and verifying that a software product or application does what is expected to do. So whatever requirement we will be getting from the client, so we need to match that my application or system or product is working accordingly to the requirement, right? It involves execution of software system component using manual or automation tool to evaluate one or more properties of interest. The purpose of software testing is to identify error, gaps or missing requirement in respect to the actual requirement. The benefit of testing include prevention bug, reducing development cost, improving overall performance and avoiding any real-time issue. Primarily the two types of software testing available. One is functional and other is non-functional. In functional, all the testing, right, acceptance testing, unit testing, functional testing, integration, regression will come. Whereas for the non-functional, right, performance, stage, load, everything will be, security testing, everything will become, right. Primarily there are two types of testings. One is black box and one is white box. So black box testing is generally done by the testing team where no prior coding knowledge is required, right. We will test it from the application UI. Where white box primarily done by the developer. So after they are developing the code, right, they are verifying something in the code, inspecting something, and they are fixing it, right. So that is called white box testing. In simple terms, software testing means the verification of application under test. So whatever software will be given, so that software you need to test based on the requirement provided, right? And in case of any deviations, you can report them as a defect, right? And the defect, in case it is a small project, definitely we can identify the defect and we can send it to in mail, or you can keep it in Excel tracker. But for the big project, it is recommended to use of the any of the test management tool, right? It can be Jira, it can be Azure DevOps, it can be Rally, it can be ALM, like that. There are a lot of other tools is also available, right? And once defect is raised, identified, it should go in the defect lifecycle management process, right? First the defect will be logged by the QA, then it will be validated by the developer or the business analyst. Once it is valid defect, then it will be fixed by the developer. In case it is invalid, it will be rejected, right? Once the fix is done, it will again come to the testers, so they will retest and revalidate it, right? And after that they will retest it, and once it is fixed, they will close it, or in case it is not fixed, they will reopen it again, right? So that's why defect management cycle is there, right? And once the development is completed and testing is completed, testing team's main objective will be that majority of the defects should be fixed before it going to the production. In case few of the defect is not fixed due to some timeline issues or other issue, at least for the critical high or medium defect, some workaround should be created by the development team, right? Okay. So these are the following important type of software testing, each with specification, objective, strategy I have tried to provide it here, right? First one will be the unit testing, where, right, because developer is first developing unit or component, right? After this development is done, they will again test it whether that unit is working fine or not on the high level. So that is called unit testing. Then functional testings, which will be done by the QA team to checking functions by emulating business scenario based on the functional requirement, right, where black box testing is commonly way to verify the function. After that, integration testing will be done, right, where all the unit will be accumulated, and then, right, it will be, and consider as a whole product. Then we need to test whole product whether from each and every component data is flowing in and out accordingly, right? So that is integration testing. Okay, and sometimes we need to perform sanity or smoke testing as well, right? So which is nothing but whenever suppose a new build is coming to the testing, right, from the development side, right? So definitely we should start the testing. But before starting the exhaustive testing, we should check the high level basic scenario, basic flow. In case it is not working properly or it is failing, we should let the developer know that your build is not working. So instead of sorry, I missed it to share it. So now are you able to see my screen? Okay, yes. Fine, yeah. So instead of taking completely that particular part, completely starting the exhaustive testing, right? So we will be validating, and in case of failure we will be reject the build, and we will let developer know that your build is not working properly, so you can fix your build, right? And so that again after the build is corrected, testing team will start the testing. Okay, whereas a regression testing is nothing but, suppose say you already certified a testing, right, and it is working properly, but say some minor revision came or some one or two requirement also changed, right? Okay, so what happens? So we need to also certify that apart from the new changes, whether my existing code did not broken, right? So we will be performing the regression testing. So we will be checking whether new feature does not break or decay functionality. Sanity testing can be used to verify menus, functions or commands at a surface level when there is no time for a full level testing. So once we certify the product, right, in all aspects, right, functional testing, integration testing, regression testing, unit testing, then we will be handing over to the non-functional testing team, where primarily two teams will be working. One is the performance testing team and another is the security testing team. So performance testing will be doing two type of testing. One is the performance or load testing and another one is stress testing. In performance testing, they will just try to validate different load in the systems and let's see the output of the product or application. Suppose say a system can work maximum 3 users, so they will definitely load vary the load like 10 members, 20 members, 30 members, like that. So that will be done in the performance testing and they will validate whether it is performing, working or not properly, right? Similarly, stress testing, because every application product should have some elastic limit. In case it is beyond limit, right, it will break down or it will fall down. So we need to check whether it is, right, kind of working properly or not, right? Whether testing is nothing but testing how much strain the system can take before it fails, considered to be part of non-functional testing. And another testing is there in the done by the performance testing team, which is recovery testing. Suppose say in case you are giving load more than that, suppose 30 members a application or a website can handle, but you are working 35 members concurrently, so definitely it will break or fall down, right? But you need to check after it breaks or crash, right, how much time it is taking to regain to the original state, whether it is going back to the original state or not, and in case it is going back to the original state, is there any problem, is there any data loss or not? So that is called recovery testing. Okay. Now another non-performance testing will be done, which is security testing team, because nowadays we are working, we are using all the website, right, from mobiles, laptop, desktop, everything, and we are ordering something, we are making the payment, but we need to make sure that the website is secured enough or not, right? Whether it's working properly, whether our data is not leaking outside. So that kind of testing need to be done to check the consistency of the system, how it's, whether it's not easily virus can be affect that, or it is not any kind of fraud can affect the URL. So to protect those things, we need to do the security testing. Okay. After that, acceptance testing will be done. In the acceptance testing, two type of testing will be there. One is the alpha testing, one is the beta testing. Alpha testing will be done in the developer end, right? Final checking before it handing to the customer, and beta testing will be done in the customer end by the end user to check that whether system is working properly or not. In the beta testing, in case it is working fine, it will be deployed to the production. And the last one will be the usability testing, where the user who will be the end user, they will see whether that application is working properly for them, they are easily able to use that application or not. So usability testing is nothing but validating how well a customer can use a system or web application to complete a task. Okay. So yeah, I already trying to cover the first one, software testing and automation testing. Then we will cover WebDriver, right? Then it's setup, then what is element locator, and different operation on the web page browser, web edit box and link. The next one is, what is the difference between error, fault and failure? So error means human error, right? Suppose something, you are given a task but you are not doing it properly due to some problem. So it is called error. Suppose say I am telling you to write 5 in pen and paper, right? Or I am telling you to write or to create a class A, but you are creating a class B. So that is called error. Fault, because instead of class A you are creating a class B, right? So it is a fault. Fault is nothing but the manifestation of an error in software or in implementation. And after that, with B only, if you implement the product, right, so it will failure, because it is not matching the requirement. I asked you to write a class A, but you write it class B, and you have compiled the code and you have completed the development of the product, so it will failure, which is nothing but the deviation of software from its expected delivery of service. So how they are three interlinked? Because of error, fault will be there and failure will be there. Okay. So any human being can make an error or mistake, right, which produces a defect or fault. So fault is defect. But in case we are not fixing the defect, right, it will be real problem and it will be failure. So we need to avoid first error. In case we are doing some error or mistake, still there is a way to catch those mistakes as part of defect, right? But in case we are fixing those defect, so there will be less chances of failure. But in case we are doing error and fault and we are not handling it, so definitely it will be failure. So that way it's interlinked. So any human being can make an error or mistake which produces a defect, fault. In case defect is not getting fixed or closed, definitely, and the code is getting executed, the system will fail to do what it should do, which is causing a failure or crash. How can error occur in the system, right? So we are all human beings, we can do some mistakes, right? Because everybody is human being, right? Intentionally, unintentionally, we are thinking something and we are reading the code, right? Some call came which is not good call, right? So definitely we are writing code, so by mistake we can do something, right? So which can be human error. Miscommunication or pro requirement, right? Communications gap, that is the common issue. I am telling you to write A, but you are writing it B, you are not able to understand because of your network issue, because of other issue, right? Because you are diverted, and the requirement is poor, very poor. Means the proper requirement was not tracked, right? So less requirement and no template followed. Working under pressure, right? Sometimes most of us can work under the pressure, tremendous pressure. So maybe it can create some problem for the long run, right? Sometimes budget is not proper from the client side, right? Suppose budget should be 1 lakh, but client is giving only 50,000. So definitely they can't expect the very reliable code. Conflict in priority work means, suppose we are working multiple projects as priority, definitely, right? So, and we are just forgetting about the priority and we are not able to complete the thing on time, right? Complexity of technology or infrastructure, right? So some of the new technology came into the market, right? And the people from the company is not adequate at the technology. So there is less resources who are comfortable in the technology. So that is the gap. Infrastructure is not properly there, right? So whenever, especially for the COVID stuff, right? Everybody started working from home. So initially some problem was there initial few months because of infrastructure issue. There was no proper equipment was there, so setup was there, and initially it was there. But right now, I think everybody is capable enough to complete their work from home, right? Poorly documented code without proper review, right? Sometimes, right, code is properly not documented because for each and every work this should be reviewed by some other associate as well as by your lead or your manager, right? But due to some constraint, they are not reviewing or not doing their proper work. Because definitely is the junior persons, I can't expect, right, that a junior person will be doing real very good code. So that is the reason senior person, their lead or project manager should guide them, right, to do the proper code and also document them how they need to follow the standard protocol like them. Due to environment condition, sometimes whatever environment we are working, that is not up to the mark, right? It is down every day, right? Or every day, in case 2 or 3 user is working, it is getting crashed, it is getting slow like that. So this is the major problem where error can occur, and because of error, fault will be there. Fault is nothing but the defect. In case we are fixing those defects, that will be fine. Otherwise, it will be failure to the system for application in the product. So these are the software testing 7 principles you need to remember very deeply. Okay, so all the tests should meet the customer requirement. So whatever customer is saying, we should follow it, right? Because they are the client or customer for us, and we should follow their requirement, right? In case any deviation, definitely we can get back to them that you said wrong requirement, so it is not our fault, right? Software testing should be performed by independent third party. So generally initial days, there was no software testing concept was there and no independent testing team was there. Only developer used to do some testing, right? But we found that because developer is having same mindset, right? So they are developing the product and they are testing it. So there is a chances of missing something in the real time, right? So that is the reason independent testing concept has came into the market and independent testing teams came into the market. So generally software testing, all kind of testing, whether it's functional, manual, automation, performance, security, everything should be done by third party, independent party. Exhaustive testing is not possible as we need the optimal amount of testing based on the risk assessment of the application. Sometimes due to limitations, full-fledged testing might not be possible, so then we need to identify the critical area for which there is a high risk of failure, right? So we will be doing some risk-based testing based on the criticality of the application, based on the importance of the from the business side. We will be trying to test those area very deeply instead of all the area. All the tests to be conducted should plan before implementing it. Definitely, what kind of testing we are talking about, right? Once the development is completed, we will be testing unit testing, functional testing, regression testing. They will be doing the performance testing, security testing. They will be doing alpha testing, beta testing, right? Then it will be going to the deployment. Otherwise, so all the testing should be completed and all the defect whatever will be encountering should be fixed or workaround should be established before it's going to the production or real-time environment. There is a rule in the testing principles, which is Pareto rule, means 80-20 rule. You need to remember it, right? So this is nothing but it is mentioned that 80% problems or defect or failure will come from 20% area. So each and every business area, some of the application, some of the functionality module will be complex in nature, and from those area 80% defect will become. Start testing with small part and extend it to the large part. So initially we should start testing with unit testing, then we will be doing functional testing, then we will be doing integration, then we will be doing regression. So we should follow it, right, from the large to the extended part. Early testing save times and money. So suppose say development is developing some product, right, and they are doing unit testing. So initial defect they are fixing it initial time. So those defects no need to encounter by the testing team again, right? But in case they are not doing the unit testing and some defect is handed over to the testing team, and again testing team is missing some defect and it is going to the production, so the cost and times and money will be more and more to fix those defects. So early defect prevention is the best way for any software development testing life cycle. So we should catch the defect as early as possible instead of in the later stage. So that is the 7 basic principle of software testing. Automation testing overview. So definitely whatever we are talking about the general testing, software testing concept, right? For the general testing concept, so first we will be analyzing the requirement, then we will be converting into them to the test scenario. Once the test scenario is identified, we will be writing the test case, we will be reviewing with the business or the business analyst, then we will be starting the testing. So once the code is available for us, we will be executing them. In case of any failure, we will be logging defect, and defect will go to the life cycle, and our will be publishing the report. So that's why your testing life cycles happen, right? So in manual testing, everything will be manual, whereas automation testing, we will be having the test case and we will be automating them, and with the help of relevant tools, programming language and the framework, and then we will be running it through the tools only. So minimal manual intervention will be required. So automation testing is software testing method or technique or to test any application and compare the actual result with the expected result. This can be achieved by designing test script using any relevant automation tool. It can be any relevant tool, any framework, any programming language. Okay, it should not be like the only Selenium will be there. There is a lot of tool is available. So that relevant programming language and that relevant framework we need to learn first. In manual testing, test cases are executed manually without any proper support from relevant tools. However, for automated testing, test cases will be executed with the assistance of one or more appropriate tools. Automation testing is also more reliable as there are less chances of human error because everything will be driven by the tools itself, right? So minimal manual intervention is required. In manual testing, we have to run the test case manually every time based on our need, hence it's time consuming. However, in automation testing, one script are ready when we can run the test cases any number of times with different combination of data with minimal time. The main goal of automation testing is to increase the test efficiency and develop software value. So once we develop the script, right, we can run them multiple times with different data variation. So before that, whenever we are starting any automation testing, we need to think about the return on investment, which is nothing but the ROI. In case we are not getting an investment, there is no point of doing the automation, right? I am giving a simple example. Suppose you are having, say, 10 test case. Okay? For 10 test case, you would require, right, 10 hours to execute manually. And for automation script development for those 10 test case, it might require 40 hours, right? So if the test case will be run one time, so if you automate them, and so you will be losing some effort. But say those test cases will be run 10 times, 15 times, like that, 20 times, say. So 10 into 20, it will be 20 hours time for the manual effort. For the automation effort, only 40 hours for the script development, and for another 20 round, it will be maybe taking 20 hours. So it will be 60 hours. So you are saving more than around 150 hours. So that's why you think. So before any automation testing, you should think about the return on investment. Unless it is positive, there is no point of doing the automation testing. But definitely we can do automate something which will be used multiple times, multiple iteration. So any kind of test integration we can automate it. Okay. And whenever we are automating it, we need to make sure that we are maintaining the script properly. Otherwise, suppose today we have developed the script, and after that, after 6 months down the line, there was lot of changes happen, right? And in the changes, in case we are not figuring the script, right, or modifying the script accordingly, whenever you are running them properly, there can be chances of script failure. Okay, so we need to maintain the script whatever we are developing. So automation testing is useful for the following mentioned aspect. One is functional test suite, right? Whatever I was talking about functional test case, we can automate regression test suite, we can automate smoke or sanity test case, we can automate build deployment, and whenever we need to create test data, Same test case we need to run with different variation or combination. So we can definitely go for the automation testing. Perform automation testing for the below mentioned scenario of software. So before automation testing, we need to make sure the following condition, that requirement is not getting changed frequently. So there is no point of automating them in case the requirement is getting changed. In case requirement is getting changed, your flow, your assertion can change, right? So today you are automating and tomorrow you can say that requirement got changed completely. So you have to enhance your script again and again, right? So there is no point of automation until the requirement is getting frozen, right? And whenever you want to automate any application, you need to make sure that that application is stable enough in nature. If it is unstable, so there is no point, because it can vary, it can change something. So first, through the manual testing, to certify that the application is stable enough, then we can do the automation testing. Whenever there is a time crunch, right? Suppose say I want to execute through manual and it might take 1 month time, but we are having only 5 days, 1 week time. So definitely we can use automation testing to complete the testing, like whenever there is a time crunch or shortage of time, right? Whenever there is a big project, definitely we can go for the automation. So it will be definitely some soft or hard dollar value saving. Project where like we need to test the same functionality again and again and again, like regression testing, smoke testing or test data, definitely we can automate those scenario. So this is the life cycle of automation testing: planning, test, script development, enhancement, debugging and publishing the report. So in the planning, we will analyze all the requirement provided by the client. We will analyze the application which will be automating it. Are we able to cope up with the application? Are we able to understand the application? Are we able to identify each and every object of the application? Then we will be identifying what are the test cases we need to automate, whether it's MOOC or whether it's a build suite, or whether it's a test data creation combination, or whether it's the regression suite. Then we will go for the test script design, right? Then we will be creating first the page library. So for each and every page we will be inspect all the elements which will be used in the my test cases. We will be creating the library for those pages. We will be creating the reusable methods. So whatever method will be created multiple times, instead of creating code multiple times, we will be creating method which will be, we can call multiple times as and where required. So in case any changes is required, we will be updating that method only, so that in case you are calling that method and you are updating a single time, so there is no problem. Design test step using element locator. Definitely we need to take help for the element locator technique. We need to identify the element, right? Either through different element locator ID, XPath. So I will let you know what is the element locator technique. After the element identification is done, we can perform different operation for those elements. Then the third life cycle will be test script enhancement. Once my script is designed, then my objective is not only to navigate from one screen to another screen. Definitely in every screen we have some validation, and we need to validate after filling some data whether the number is getting generated properly or not, or whether it's a drop down field or not, whether it's text field or not, whether it's taking the alphanumeric value or not. So all the validation we need to perform. So we need to do or insert verification point using assert or verify command. In case same test case we need to run multiple times, so definitely we can do the parameterization, means we will be changing the data. So where we can use the parameterization technique and data driven testing approach, right? Where we can call data from external source, it can be CSV, Excel or database. Then we need to handle the expected or unexpected error. Why you need to handle the error? Because any point of time any kind of exception error can come, right? So definitely in case you are handling those error, suppose you design 500 lines of code and your 10 lines of code error came. In case you did not handle, so definitely it will fail it and it will stop the execution there only. The remaining line of code will not be executed. But because you handle the error, definitely the step will fail in that step and error will be thrown, but it will still continue the remaining line of code execution. Then the fourth life cycle will be run and debug the test script, right? Once we developed everything, we need to run them, to do the demo run to find out any kind of error is there or not, right? So in case any error is there, we need to locate, isolate them and we need to debug them before running in the actual environment. After that, in the last stage, we will be running in the actual environment and they will be analyzing the result. In case of any failure, right, will be identifying the defect and will be logging the defect, and defect will go in the defect life cycle and will be publishing the test result to the functional team, to the developer, to the client, and to the relevant stakeholder of your organization. These are the different automation tools used nowadays in the market. Few are licensed, few are having free of cost. Selenium is free of cost, very powerful tool, especially for the web application testing. It provides multiple browser support, whereas UFT or QFTP, Quick Test Professional or Unified Functional Testing, is a very powerful tool for Windows-based application, and it has some built-in feature. It is a licensed tool. RFT, Rational Functional Tester, is also an kind of powerful tool for the UI testing, GUI testing, regression functional testing, which is also the license cost tool. Tosca is also license cost tool, which is a powerful tool for regression testing of various software products. Silk is also a license cost tool, which is used for automation, functional and regression testing for desktop, mobile and web application. Okay. Whereas SQL is open source tool primarily done for the GUI testing. GUI testing is nothing but kind of validating the screen level alignment, whether all the buttons, link, everything aligned properly or not, left alignment, top alignment, right alignment, down alignment, everything is proper or not, look and feel is fine or not, like that. For API testing, we can use SOAP UI or REST Assured or Postman, right? And for mobile testings or native apps testing or mobile web application testing, we will be using API, APM, and there is a two framework available, JUnit and TestNG. So JUnit is used by the development team for the unit testing, whereas TestNG framework we can use for the testing team, where we can not only supporting the Selenium WebDriver as well as with the help of TestNG, we can also do the REST Assured and API integration. So this is the component of Selenium, like Selenium IDE, Selenium Remote Control, Selenium WebDriver, and Selenium Grid. So Selenium IDE came into the market in the year of 2006-07, like that. So it was a kind of record and playback mechanism, but nowadays it is not used. It is a Firefox add-on. And Selenium RC or remote control is known as Selenium 1, which is nothing but previously, like there was no programming language you can use in Selenium IDE, but in Selenium RC we can use create some complex test case with the help of some programming language. Whereas Selenium WebDriver is the newer breakthrough that allows user to develop their test script and communicate directly to the browsers, and control can be done from the OS level, operating system level. Whereas Selenium RC and Selenium WebDriver has been merged, and it has been Selenium 2 and Selenium 3 is there. Nowadays Selenium 4 also developed, but it is not being used muchly, but definitely down the line Selenium 4 will be used. And Selenium Grid is nothing but a tool which can use together with the Selenium RC to do the parallel testing, right, in different browser and OS combination. Why parallel testing is required? Because some of the client are using different browser or different operating system, right, and they need to validate that each operating system or browser is working properly or not, right. So Selenium Grid can be used. So this is the 4 component of Selenium. Advantage of Selenium, because every tools have some drawbacks or some advantage, right, pros and cons will be there. Similarly, Selenium is some good advantage there. It is open source tool, so you no need to invest any kind of additional amount for the buying the license. Scripting can be done in most of the commonly used language like Java, C#, Python, right, Perl, HP, like that. Automation testing using Selenium can be done in many operating system. It can be Mac, it can be Linux, it can be your Windows. It supports most commonly used browser like Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, Opera, and Safari. Selenium Grid already mentioned, it supports parallel testing, right, and distributed testing. And Selenium uses very less hardware, right, because it is taking only 256 MB hardware. Also you can install Selenium. Whereas for the other tool, right, RFT, in minimum 3 GB RAM is required. Okay, otherwise your system will be very slow and you will not able to operate at all. Similarly, some disadvantage also there in the Selenium, right. So web service, REST or SOAP cannot be automated using Selenium. Selenium WebDriver require programming language, so you need to learn any of the programming language. It can be say Java, Python, or C#. Otherwise, scripting development cannot be done. As Selenium is a free tool, right, so no proper support. Sometimes you can't get it because it's a free tool. If you want to get some support, you have to buy some license tool like UFT or Silk or Tosca, like that. as there is no as this is a free tool, right? So limitation is there in terms of object repository or in terms of some framework. So if you want to create object repository, you have to do by yourself. You have to customize the code, right? You have to write more code. If you want to read and write files, so you have to rely on the library or framework which is external, because those inbuilt feature is not available. So advantage of Selenium WebDriver, in the Selenium WebDriver is the part, right, which is used the most, and Selenium Grid is used only for the parallel or distributed testing. So Selenium WebDriver, like multiple browsers supported here. You can see Google, Firefox, Opera, even mobile browser as well, Android, iOS. Like it can be supported multiple operating systems, Mac, Windows, Linux. Supported multiple programming language, Python, Ruby, PHP, Perl, Java. It is faster than other Selenium suites, IDE, RC. It controls the browser by programming. It supports data-driven testing, cross-browser testing. Cross-browser is nothing but like different browser, different OS combination. Data-driven testing is nothing, that will be providing different data from the external source, which are varying the data with for the same set of test case. It supports parallel test execution with the help of different framework, JUnit or TestNG. So I have tried to depict the differences of free tool and licensed tool. So UFT is a free tool, whereas Selenium is an open source tool. Selenium supports multiple operating system and multiple browsers, multiple programming language, whereas UFT support only MS Windows, only VBScript language, and only I think one browsers. Okay. So Selenium supports primarily web application, whereas UFT or QTP support web and Windows based application. No inbuilt feature is available for Selenium for object repository or reporting, whereas those features are available in the UFT. Environment setup or is very tough in Selenium, whereas it's easy for UFT because it's already packaged in format. Right? Selenium uses very less hardware, whereas UFT uses more hardware. Parameterization, we need to rely on the external techniques or tools or framework for the Selenium, whereas parameterization is the inbuilt feature for UFT. Reliable support will not be there for the Selenium, whereas it will be there for the UFT from the HP, because you are buying the license. As some differences I also try to depict here for the Selenium and the Silk. Selenium is an open source tool, whereas Silk is a licensed tool. Selenium support multiple browsers, Silk only support MS Windows. Lot of reference materials can be available for Selenium in the market or YouTube in the Google. For Silk, right, not much relevant information is available in the internet or the on the Googles or in the YouTube, right? Selenium support multiple browsers, Silk only support IE and Firefox. Selenium support multiple programming language, whereas Silk support only 4 test scripting language, which is similar to C++. Selenium support primarily web based, but nowadays with the help of Winamp we can also do the Windows based application, but it's primarily used for the web application. Though we have developed Winamp, but still a lot of kind of limitation is there, whereas Silk primarily deals with the client server application. So this is the prerequisite we need to install whenever we are starting any project in Selenium. First is the Java development kit, then the Eclipse, right, or IntelliJ IDE, right, then the WebDriver. Selenium WebDriver is nothing but the kind of the jar file where we can get all our methods or class or interface. No need to worry, it will be covered in Java section, what is method, what is interface, what is kind of class. So then the different driver for different browser. In case it is a Chrome browser, we need to install a Chrome driver. It is a Firefox browser, we need to install Gcodriver. In case it is a Internet Explorer browser, we need to install the IE driver. So first we need to install the JDK, right? So this is the URL I already depicted. You need to open it, you need to go to the JDK download, right? If you click here, so you will be having that options, right, and you can go through that relevant your systems. How can you check the systems? First you need to click on the my computer, then you can click on the properties, and then you can system or get all the details about your system, right? You can see here it's kind of Windows 10 system. It's 64-bit machines with all the details configuration, right? You can get it, so you can check it here. After that you can do take it to the relevant part, right? In case it is a Windows 64, you can check it here. and you need to install it, right? After that you can check it and you can try to download it. I am not downloading it because yesterday my system got shut down, so you can just download it, and whatever exe file be downloaded, you need to double click and you need to complete the installation process. Once it is installed, you will be getting the Java, right? So anything after 1.8 is fine, version 1.8. You can right now I think 1.6 is available, also 1.16 is available, so you can go anything with which is beyond outside 1.8 Java version, JDK version. So if you go to the C drive, you can go to the program files and you can find a folder for Java, right? And you can see lot of things I have in 1.8 is also there, because 1.8 is also required for the Jenkins part, so that is the reason I have downloaded here 1.8, and for the Selenium part I can get anything. Okay, so once it's fine, also you can check whether Java is installed or near. So you need to go to that command prompt, okay, CMD, and you can check here Java version, Java hyphen version. So you can see right, it's showing like 10.1 version. So before that you need to also do one setting here. So if you right click to the my computer, so you'll be getting that you need to go to the advanced setting, system setting, and you need to go to the environment variable. Here you need to create a new variables, right, which is nothing but the Java underscore home. So you need to give the variable name as Java underscore home, and you need to give the value, right? Value is nothing but till that JDK 10.1 path, that is the path you need to give it here. And then you need to also create a go to the path variables, and you need to edit it, and you need to give the value in the build folder here. So this is the bin path folder that you need to give it. So this is the two important thing you need to do after the Java installation is done. Then you need to click on OK, right? So after that only you can see the Java is displaying with the version number here in the command prompt. Okay, so this is the Java setting we need to done first. Then the next one is we need to install the Eclipse, right? So if you go to the URL for the Eclipse, this is the URL for Eclipse. You can install the Eclipse for your Windows, Linux or Mac machine. After that you can proceed one by one, and it will be installed in your system. Once it is installed, it will look like that only. Okay, so it's already installed in my C drive. So I have installed here C drive. So it will be just like it will be look like the folder like Eclipse. Okay, and this is the for machines, my system, Windows system. If you find the folder called Eclipse, and here you will be finding an option exe application file Eclipse. You need to open it. Whenever you will be opening for the first time, you need to create your workspace. Once you create your workspace, you can open the Eclipse. So it will take some time for initialization. Then you need to go to the download the jar file for the Selenium, okay, where we can get all our classes, interface, or the methods given by the Selenium. So I am closing that options, and this is the path for downloading a Selenium jar file. So you can find here the latest stable version. If you click it, the Selenium jar file will be downloaded in your system, and I have already downloaded here. This is the jar file. It looks like this is the jar file. Yeah, that's way it is looks like Selenium standalone server file. You can save it any of desktop or any of the drive or desktop as well. After that, so once you open the Eclipse, it will be looks like that. You do not have a workspace, you need to first create the workspace. After that you need to select that workspace and you need to click on the launch button. So it will be starting to launch, right? And you need to also download one of the relevant driver for your browser, right? So in case if you want to perform the operation for your Chrome driver, through Chrome browser, you need to install the Chrome driver, right? So you need to go to that path, right? So path is already given here, and before that you need to check your browser version. How can you check it? You need to click here three dot options. You need to click on the help, and you can click on the Google Chrome, right? So you need to check the version of your browser, because everyone's system browser version can be different. So it's for me it's 91.0 Google Chrome version, right? So let's see 91.0. For 91.0 you need to download that one. In case it is 88, you need to download that version. If it is 90.0, you need to download that version. And after the downloaded, it will be look like that, right? Chrome driver. There will be zip file. You need to extract the zip file and you need to keep it. Similarly, for the Gcode driver, you need to go to that path, right? And you need to download the relevant based on your browser version. So I already installed these three things. One is Eclipse, Java is already there. The Gcode driver and the Chrome driver exe file I have also installed, and Selenium jar file already installed. So 4 prerequisite already there. So Java is there. Then I have launching my Eclipse, right? Then I am having my Selenium jar file. I am having my browser, the driver for the Chrome and Gcode. In case if you want to do also the IE, you need to install the IE driver as well. So you can check by yourself so that you can run it for multiple browser as well. Then once the download is successful for the Eclipse, right, we will be launching the eclipse.exe file, which I already showed you, right? Eclipse.exe file, we will be launching it. After that, we need to set up our workspace to any locations. After that, it will open, right? That particular Eclipse will open, so it will take some time. Okay, if you open it for first time, so it will take even few minutes time even as well. So let's wait. So it will be open soon. Okay, so it's opened. Okay, here. So that's why it's look like. Yeah, so it will be open. Okay, it should take some time. After that, it look like that only, workspace Eclipse, right? So now if you want to create a new project, right, so you need to click on new file Java project and you need to finish the project. After the project is created, you need to create a package, right? Once the package is created, you need to create a class, right? After that, the Java jar file, Selenium jar file, whatever we have downloaded, we need to assign it or we need to add it to the project level, so that from the project level, whatever class we will be creating, we can get all the Selenium properties, right? So I will show you how we can create a new project. So you need to create a file, new, and you can see Java project option is there, right? You can click on the Java project. So I will be giving the project name as Selenium June 21 morning batch. Okay, and here please make sure that you are selecting the right Java SE below 1.8, otherwise it will create problem. Though you are installing Java 1.16, but you are selecting not beyond 1.8, otherwise you can face lot of problem. So please make sure, and then click on the finish. So it will create your project, Selenium June 21 morning batch. Setting the build path, so it might take some time. Okay, you can see my project is got created here, right? So if you expand the project, you can see here the JRE system library file already been built, because it's a Java project, so all the Java features will be added here, right? So this is package, all the Java package will be added here, because if you want to create something, all the Java related features, methods, interface, everything will be coming here. You can find a SRC folder, and SRC folder you need to create a package first, right? So right click here in the src folder and then click on the new, and then you can click on the package. Okay, so package I am giving the name as training. Okay, and clicking on the finish button, and then once the package is created, you need to create a class. In a particular project we can create multiple package, and in a single package we can create multiple class. So this will be Java class. So session 1 I am giving, and here we can select the public static void main, which is nothing but the main function of Java, right? So we need to select it. So in case we are using any Java, then only we will be using it, but in case we are using testng, there is no need to select that public static void method. We will be adding @test annotation going forward. You will learn slowly. Okay, no need to worry. So first today's session and next session will be covered from the Selenium WebDriver. Then I will continue the Java. All the basic and advanced will be covered. Then I will continue with the remaining Selenium WebDriver topic. I will then complete the testng, then Maven, then all the framework, then Jenkins. So that way I will be providing the training. So this is the session 1, and I am selecting the public static void main, and I am clicking on the finish button. So my first class will be created, which is nothing but the class name will be session 1, right? Once the class is selected, created, you can see, right, the thing here. This is the class. You can see package is training, right? And the public class name is session 1, and the main function is there. And here if you want to write something, you can call the SOISO method, and if you press Ctrl spacebar, right, you can see the method. SOISO means system out.println, right? It will be coming here. And if you want to print something, right, so it will be printed in the console, that section. SOISO Ctrl and spacebar from your keyword. You can see all the methods will be coming. So SOIS out method. This is the method name. If you want to print something here, suppose my first Java program. Okay, okay, and after that if you can run it, either you can run it from here, run, right, session 1 like that, or you can right click here and then you can run it, right? There's an option called run as, or right, so you can run here, run as, and then Java application. So if you're running it, right, and you need to select the class, and here console, the output will be coming. Output will be only the my first Java project, that is the Java concept. So no need to worry, because Java will be trained completely from the scratch level. So you can learn definitely the basic and advanced Java, right? So that's why I can create my Java first class, right? My first program. Okay, this is done. So I already created my workspace, I have created my project, I have created my packages, I have created my class. Then I will associate the Selenium jar file, which is nothing but that jar file, right? I will be associated. So this is my start step. So I have installed my Java. Any persons out like which is above 1.8. Okay, I have already installed any of the Eclipse. It can be any of the ID. It can be Eclipse ID, or it can be IntelliJ ID. Okay, then with that ID I am creating a workspace, I am creating new Java project, I am creating a package in the src folder, and in that package itself I am creating a class. And then once the class is ready, I am associating the Selenium jar file, which is third step in the project. So I need to select the project. Why I am associating in the project level? So that all the package and all the classes under that particular project will get those Selenium jar file, right? Right click here, select the project, click on the properties, select the Java build path, right, and you can add external jars option, and here you need to select the jar file. So you need to go to the desktop, you can find the jar file, right, Selenium server standalone jar file, which we downloaded. Select it. So you can see it's already associated. Click on the apply and close. Now you can see immediately that reference library is getting created immediately, which is nothing but the jar file, right? It's adding in the project. So it is adding in the project level, right? So whatever class or package you will be creating, we will be getting those. We can access those jar file, means all the Selenium reference library we can access, where we can get all the Selenium WebDriver classes, interface and the relevant associated methods. Now I will be creating my first program where I will be running the any script with the help of any browsers, right? So this is the some of the important naming convention I have given. So if I want to create any class name, it should start with uppercase letter. So class is nothing but it should be noun format. Interface name should start with uppercase letter, also it should be adjective format, right? Method name should start with lowercase letter, right? Like that. In case multiple part is there, second part we can start with uppercase. Variable name should start with letter lowercase letter. Package name should start with lowercase letter, and the constant name whenever declaring a Java constant it should be uppercase letter. So that is the simple some protocol you need to follow in your project as well, because every organization need to follow some standard or protocol or coding structure. Otherwise, it will be trouble for the all of the users. In case multiple automation tester is working, and in case you are not following any protocol standard, so it will be trouble for all of you to inspect and to debugging and to running or to maintain the code. Then how we can run our first program for the with the help of Chrome browsers, right? So suppose first we need to set the properties of the Chrome browser. So just press system. Okay, if you press system and then dot, all the associated methods will come whatever is under the system set property. Okay, so system dot set property, and here you need to first give the key and then the value. Okay, so key and value care combination you need to give. What will be the key? Key will be, in case if you want to deal with the Chrome driver, so key will be, everything will be in double, okay, code. So WebDriver dot Chrome dot driver for Chrome driver, okay, and you need to close the double quote. And value, whatever you need to give, the value you need to give is the path of your Chrome driver. So my path is here, right? So you can right click here and you can go to the properties and you can get the path, right? So this is your path. So you need to give that path in double quote. Along with that, you need to give the name of the exe file. So you can see this is the file application is exe. So it will be, I will give him slash chromedriver.exe. So desktop // chromedriver.exe. Okay, and I am closing with semicolon. And each and every lines of code need to end with semicolon. This is Java syntax. Okay, so I will be letting you know whenever I will be talking with Java. So this is the first part. Okay, and you need to use // because Selenium WebDriver, whenever you are doing scripting, you does not read any single slash. Though it is single slash here, right, in the exe file here, if you open the chromedriver.exe file, though it is a single slash, but you need to give it // c slash / user slash name slash desktop and // this is the application name and this is the file name extension exe file. So that is the path you need to give it here. So your application property set, right, Chrome drivers property set, WebDriver.chrome is the driver is the key and this is the value for the Chrome driver part. Then I will be creating a object or instance for the WebDriver interface. You need to make sure this is the interface WebDriver, and I am creating a variable driver, okay, or object, where I will be calling new for Chrome driver, it will be Chrome driver. So that is the syntax you need to remember. Okay, now you can see two messages coming, error message is coming, right, red icon, right? So we need to, from where WebDriver is coming, right, we need to import, you can see the WebDriver from the org.openqr.selenium packages, because in that package that interface is there, right? So you need to import it. So you can see that it is getting imported in my script. Again, still error message is there because the Chrome diver is a class which is still not imported, because the Chrome diver is a class which we can found it from the org.openqa.selenium.chrome packages, which will be available in the standalone jar file. So if you expand the jar file, you can find a package name, right? That package org.openqa.selenium.webdriver. org.openqa.selenium. Okay, so this is the package where WebDriver is residing, which is the interface, and whereas Chrome diver, Gcko diver, iDiver is a class. You can see the WebDriver, right? So if you want to validate WebDriver, you can sudo the WebDriver, right? And you can see this is the I option is there, right? That is called its interface. Otherwise it will be class, right? I option is there, that is meaning interface. So we are creating object or instance for the WebDriver interface and for the Chrome diver class. Here you can see still YOLO icon is there, right? Because that driver we did not use anywhere, right? So it is still YOLO. In case we are using anywhere, then it will be no error message will be there. Now we can driver object is created means we are just launching the Chrome browser instance. So with that instance, now I can maximize the window, right? So driver dot window. So if you just type, all the methods will be coming one by one. Driver dot manage dot window dot maximize. So that is the command. Few of the command you need to remember it, but as and when you will be practicing more, you can definitely recapture those easily. So I can maximize by window, right? Now I can pass a URL, driver.get, that is the command for passing the URL. So whatever URL I want to pass, suppose say I will be passing the URL for our Facebook page. So this is the URL I can pass it. Just copy the Facebook page, and here everything will be double quote, because string is this is string, so any string need to give in double quote. If it is integer, definitely we can give it without double quote, right? So that is the command. And if I want to print something here, right, so I can give the SOISO method. So here I can give that Facebook page should open. Okay, successful. Now let's turn to run that code. Try to run the code and let's see whether it's launching the Chrome browser first, and then it is maximizing the browser, passing the URL for Facebook page, and then it is opening the Facebook page, and after that it is that particular part is also printed in the console. So everything will be automated, no need to do any manual intervention. Okay, you can see here Chrome driver was started successfully, right? You can see the options. It is launching the Chrome browser, it is maximizing the browser, and after that it is passing the URL for Facebook page, right? So it's once the page is fully loaded, right, because that is the code we have written so far, right? And you can see that is the output is coming, right? That output whatever we have given. So that's why we can, right, work with the Facebook browser. Now let's comment out the code. Okay, how can you comment out the code? You need to select the code, go to the source, you can add block comment. So those lines of code will not be used much, though it is mentioned in the code, but those will be skipped here. Now I want to work with the Firefox browser, right? So how you need to change? The same will be there, WebDriver dot, here you need to change it to Firefox browser, right? WebDriver.Gcko, this is the name of the Firefox driver. This is the only part we need to change, right? Instead of Chrome it will be Gcko, and here we need to change the path of the Firefox driver. So Gcko driver I have installed here, so it is also placed in the same, right, C drive desktop. So I'll be just changing the path. So here I am just changing the path, otherwise the same location is there, right? The name is only gcodiver.exe, right? So this is the for Firefox driver, and here WebDriver I will be using the same interface. I will be creating a same instance of object. Here instead of Chrome driver it will be Firefox driver. So this is the three change you need to make it Firefox driver. Okay, now you can see error message is there with red icon. So we need to import the Firefox driver class, right? So we need to import it. Okay, we need to import it. Okay, after that is fine. So three change we need to do. One is that part. In case it is a Chrome, it will be Chrome. In case it is a Firefox driver, it will be Gco. In case it is a IE, it will be only IE. WebDriver.ie.driver. In case we are dealing with IE browser, Internet Explorer browser, so it will be Internet Explorer driver, right? Okay, and here we need to give the path of the IE driver. So that is the three change we need to only do for different browser. Now if you want to change, run the script, same way it will be running. Instead of Chrome browsers, it will be opening the Firefox browser, and it will be maximizing the browser. It will be passing the URL for Facebook page, and it will be printing that part in the console. You can see it is Mozilla, because the Firefox is the Mozilla, right? Mozilla Firefox. So if anything is failure, it will be coming in the console section, and you can validate it. So it is launching the Firefox browser. You can see it's open and maximized. It will try to enter the URL for Facebook. Okay, it is entering the URL for Facebook, and once the Facebook page is open, definitely your test script execution is stopping there, because that line of code you have written so far, and you can see the console output, right? Facebook page is successfully launched, right? So that's way you can work with different browser with the help of different driver. You can uncomment it here, just removing that particular section. So now it's only the Chrome browser. Okay, the next part I will show you. So this is the lines of code I have tried to write down here also. So this is next is I will try to let you know what is locator, because I was telling, right, we need to first identify the element with the help of locator techniques, then we can perform the operations on those locator, right? So locators can be termed as an address that identify an web element uniquely within the web page. Locators are the HTML properties of a web element, right? So this is the HTML property. Element locator are common for our browser. So if you open it, the locator IE browser, Chrome browser, Firefox browser, the property of the locator will not change. It will be same, right? If you open any web page in computer, desktop or mobile, you will see lot of different element, right? It can be edit box, it can be text box, it can be drop down, it can be image, button, frame, tables, like link, hyperlink, like that. So these are the element, and we need to locate them with the help of element locator technique, right? How we can inspect it? So in case you are opening any page, right, this is the Facebook page I open, right? So you need to either right click here and click on the inspect button, okay, or you need to press F12 button from your keyboard. Press F12 button from your keyboard, right? You can find that part right hand side, and you can find an inspect button. You need to select that word and mouse over it, right? And you can select a particular thing. Suppose this is the text box I want to select, right? And you can see this is the property of the text box. If you right click here and you can copy, and you can copy element, and if you can paste it any of the way, right, notepad, so you can get all the properties of that particular email field, right? So that's why you can inspect the element, right? So you need to open the web page in any of the browser. You need to press F12 button, you click on the inspector button, then you need to mouse over it, right? So that you can get all the annotation. Here you could see, right, everything is starting with some tag. This is called tag name. Here its tag is input. So in case the tag name is input, definitely it's a web edit field. Means we can edit something because it will take some input, right? Similarly, if the tag name is a anchor tag A, it will be link. If the tag name is img, it will be image, or SRC, it will be image, right? In case it is a start with A, right? So it will be link or hyperlink. In case it is starting with TD, or it will be table, right? In case it is starting with select tag, so it will be drop down field. That's why you can definitely easily identify that what is all about. Suppose in case I want to inspect that link, right? You can see this starting with A tag. In case I want to inspect the image, either it will be starting with img or src. You can see tag name starting with img. So that is the HTML properties of that element, and with the help of HTML property we are having some property like id, class, name, right, link text, partial link text, or in case we are not having the property, we need to identify our own XPath or CSS selector through which we can identify the element. So this is the element locator. So in Selenium WebDriver there are primarily 8 element locator is there: id, name, class name, tag name, link text, partial link text, or CSS selector or XPath, right? So whenever if you want to identify with any of the properties, you need to write that code: driver.find element by dot element locator, and this is the element locator value, right? So driver is nothing the object or instance of the WebDriver. Find element is the WebDriver element method. By is the predefined class in Selenium. ID is the element locator, and this is the value. So that is the 8 element locators available in Java. So let's try to inspect one element, right? So here I want to add something, okay? So that's what I want to add. So I already taken the properties here, right? For this you can see the class is there, the name is there. So let's first try to inspect the element with id, right? Okay, the id is email. So how can I inspect it? So I need to go to the Eclipse. I can remove that line. So first my Facebook page is open, then I need to first inspect the element driver.find element, right? So you can see two methods is coming: find element and find elements. So whenever will be I want to identify single element, will be using find element. Whenever I want to identify multiple elements only with the tag name, then I will be using find elements, right? So find element, then I will be using by dot, right, element locator value, this id or name, anything, and then the value. So by dot id and the value of the id. So what is the value of the id? Which is nothing, but I will take it from here. This is the value, right, that part. So I already identified my element. Then it is a edit field, right? So I used to send some keys, right? So whatever thing you want to send it. So suppose I want to send test or username 123, that is the text I want to send, right? Similarly, for the next part, password field, I want to identify the password field, right? Suppose say password field id is already there, I want to identify with name. So name is also passed, okay? So I will be identifying next line, next field with the name, driver dot find element, right, by dot name. I will be giving the name here, and similar way I will be sending some keys because it is a text field only. You can get the nature of it by the tag name, input tag. So it is a text field. So here you no need to type anything. You can from the name itself you can get it. Sometimes text field can be read only also. Okay. So I will be adding those.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, tell me.
Yes. Yeah. So any of the property is fine, right? So
No, no.
suppose.
So suppose actually, yeah,
Yeah. Tell me. Tell me.
we, yeah, we have here. So name is equal to pass and ID is equal to pass, and so we can take ID is equal to
Yeah,
pass
yeah,
also.
anything.
So we
Yeah,
can.
right. Anything. So I already mentioned
Okay.
ID, name, class name. In case those are given, so we can take anything, but that should be unique in nature. In case it is duplicate, we need to create unique identifier. Got it?
Okay.
Okay. So that is the anything you can take it where is mentioned, right? Either name, anything. name, ID, class name, or in case it is a link, so definitely we will be identifying it through link text or partial link text. In case nothing is there, we can go with the CSS selector or XPath, because we need to identify with unique properties. In case duplicate is there, so we can't use the, suppose say pass name is there in the 2 or 3 field, so definitely we can take it, right? So okay,
Yeah.
so that you will slowly learn, it's no need to worry. So suppose that part, right, I want to send some keys is password 1 2 3, and okay, so this line of code I have written. Okay, now let's this line of code and let's see whether this is working fine or not. Okay, you can see here Facebook page is opening, username and password is getting entered, right? Whatever you have given here, okay, that value is getting entered. Okay, now say I want to identify the email field with some other properties, right? Suppose say I want to identify the email field, suppose with class, right? That is the class, but the class is not unique here, that is the problem, because for both the field the class name is same, you can see. So right, we should not identify because it is not unique. Otherwise we can identify with the help of XPath or CSS. So we can definitely create our own customized XPath, but still there is a provision to take the XPath, right, or CSS. So I will be identifying it, suppose say I will be identifying one field with XPath. So how can I take it? So right click here, click on the copy, XPath or CSS, right? This is the selector or XPath. So if you want to change with XPath, you have to change here also. Instead of ID, you will be changing it to XPath, and you will be adding this field XPath, right? So it will work. And similarly for the name field, I want to inspect with the, instead of name or ID, I want to inspect with CSS selector. So you click on the copy. So right now I am not writing anything, so I will let you know how we can customize it, by how we can create our own XPath in the upcoming session. So here it will be, instead of name, it will be CSS selector, right? Just we are now, I am not writing anything, I am writing from here CSS selector, right, and providing the value here. Okay, now let's try to run it, but that need to be unique, otherwise it will not able to identify it. It is opening the Facebook page. You can see it is entering, right, the username and password with the help of CSS and XPath as well. Okay, so that's way you can deal with the different properties. Now say let's, I will run with Google page, another page. Okay, I will try with another page called Google. Okay, so here you can find lot of links, right? So I want to click a link, right? So if I select here, if I select here, I want to click a link, right? Gmail or images or anything, any link I want to click here. So Gmail link. Okay, so that is the link. You can see you are either finding in class, but maybe class is not unique, but you are not able to find anything, ID, name, right? So definitely you are not able to create, click or identify the element, right? So you have to, that option link, that is the text option. So you can use link text or partial link text, right? So to clicking on that option, right? So let's change the first the URL for the Google page. So here you need to change the URL path for the Google. So I can comment out these lines of code for now. Okay, and Google page I want to click a options. So there are two options here. One is the link text and one is the partial link text. So link text means you are giving the full text of the link, and partial link text means you are giving the partial part of the link. Okay, suppose why partial link text used? Suppose say for a particular link, suppose say the link text is forgotten password, right? Okay, or it has two components, but there's a chances that one component can change dynamically. So definitely every time if you change it, it will fail it. So instead of that, we will be going to the fixed component part, right? So we can identify the element with the fixed component, right? So that is the reason partial text link text is there. In case the link text is big very, we can go with the some unique part, and link text will be giving the complete link. Okay, so that's why we can identify the element. Now here just give driver dot find element. So I will be identifying it by link, by dot link. You can see link text will be coming, and here you need to give the text of the link. How you can get it? This is the text you need to give in for that link, right? And you need to end with the double quote because it is string, and it is a link. So action will be dot click, right? So in case it is edit box, we can add some value, we can clear some value. In case it is a link, hyperlink, we can click on that option, right? Now let's save the code and let's try to run it, and let's see whether link is getting clicked or not. You can see Google page will be opening instead of Facebook page, right? And it will be click the Gmail options with the help of link text, right? You can see Gmail option is getting clicked, right? So that's why it is working. Okay, now say I will be using the tag name, right? So you can see the tag name. So all the link will be starting the tag name with A, right? All the link, you can see the tag name is starting with A. So now I want to see how many link is available in the page. So I want to count the link number. So I will be using the find elements, right, with the tag name. So driver dot find elements, it will be 5 elements, and you can see here the return type is list and web element. So that's why you can select return type as well if you want to store, because you are getting all the reference, so you need to store somewhere, right? So return type will be link, list and web element. So that thing you need to remember, that will be return type whenever you are using your find element, and in case it is a find element, return type is web driver. So that is the reason that web driver, because driver instance we can perform the operation. But here 5 elements, the return type, here no return type is there for the find element, you can see. But for the find element, return type is, this is the return type. So we need to store them in the return type. So I will be using find elements, right? And here I will be using by dot tag name, right? Tag name. What is the tag name? Tag name is A, anchor link, right? And I need to end with semicolon, and this I need to store somewhere. So where? Based on the return type I will be storing it. So it will be, again if you do not have any idea, let's press driver dot find elements, right? This is the return type list web element. So here I will be storing it list and web element. So this is the return type, and I need to create a variable definitely. So suppose say links is the variable and I am assigning it. You can see error message gone. Sorry, error message is there because we need to import the list interface, right, from the java.util package, because list is an interface in Java. Still error message is there because we need to web element class from the Selenium web driver. We need to import it, right, from the var0.openql Selenium. Now it is gone, right? Now if you want to print out how many links is available, you need to simply SYSO, and because this is a integer, right? So you no need to give in double quote. In case it is integer, you need to give in only that part. In case it is a string variable, so you need to give it. Okay, now let's see how many links is there in the web page. So I can easily get the links. Count. So it will open the Google page, and whatever link size is there, it will print it. So you can see this is the one link, this is the one link, and these are all our link, right? And if you also down here, right, this is the link, this is the link, this is the link, this is link, like that. All are linked, right? So you can get the count how many link is available here. Okay, it is giving the link here. Okay, so yeah, so we need to get the size of the link, right? It is not the variable, so that is the reason it's giving all the tag name. So if I get the size, so it will be variable name dot get size. Okay, variable name dot size, sorry, not get size, it will be size, so that I can get the size of the variable, how many size is there. So okay, and now if I want to print all the variables, all the link also, so I can print the link also here. So I need to use a for loop here. So now you no need to concentrate on this thing, because I will be covered in Java. So I'll be using a for loop, or I'll be declaring a variable integer I equal to 0. Then I will go till the size I less than links dot size. That is the syntax for loop I plus plus. Okay, then I will be giving some double bracket, double quote, then I'll be printing the value. So so I'll be printing the value. So how can I print the value? So links, that's the variable. I want to get all the variables dot get of I index. I need to give it get of I is the index, and then get text for each and every link. So that is the simple thing I need to type, get text. So it will be remembered one by one, it will be getting to, but nowadays it can be difficult for you. So first I want to inspect the element with the particular tag name. I am storing it the variable. Then if I want to get the size, the variable name dot size. And if I want to print all the links one by one, I'll be using some for loop. So that is the syntax for the for loop. So for integer, then it will be starting for 0, it will go till the size of the loop, and it will iterate one by one. And if I want to get all the links part, so I can get I for one all iteration one by one and get text. Let's try to save the code. Let's try to run. So that's why I can even find elements. In case we need to inspect multiple things, we need to print out multiple things with the same tag name number, we can definitely use. So it will open the Google page. Okay, let's close it and let's see here. Right, you can see here total count is 25. Total link available in the Gmail page, and this is the link name, right? Gmail, image, sign in. Because this is not coming, why it is the asterisk marks? Because this is not able to understand that language, right? Hindi, Marathi, all this language is not able to understand, because only it's able to understand the English. That is the reason it is giving. But otherwise, this is the link, this is the link, so it will give you all the link here in the console about advertisement business. So total link is 25, and you can get all the links, right? Now, if you want to click a link from that options, right? Okay, so you can use a if loop here. Okay, so let's comment it out the link option, and based on the text I want to create a loop, right? Click a loop here. So I'll be giving a loop here, if loop condition, if the condition is getting matched with something, I'll be clicking that option. So links, if my links dot get of I, right? Get of I dot text dot get text. If my the links of, if my particular text, right, is matching with some of the text, then it will click dot, I will be equal ignore case. So if it's matching with that particular contents, so here I can give something. Suppose I want to click on that image part, so I'll be giving that image here, IMAGES. So yeah, no need to worry about that exact term, because Java is very case sensitive. So in case it is not matching, even caps or smaller case, uppercase, it will not hit. But here I have given that option, equal ignore case. So it will ignore the uppercase, lowercase. Then what happens? It will, again I need to give the once this is matching with that, then it will click on that option. So I need to give again and double quote, sorry, double bracket. So it will links that links, right? So links dot get of I equal to click. dot click. After that, we can break the loop. So in case it is matching, there is no need to iterate all the remaining part. So that is the lines of code I have written. First, I am iterating, right? All the link whatever is there. Suppose after that, if I want to check whether that image is matching, that keyword is matching with that particular name, immediately it will click, and the other part will not be iterated. So that is the line of code. First, I am looping using a for loop. I am iterating all the link text one by one, and in case it is matching, text is matching with that image with ignoring the case, uppercase, lowercase, immediately it will click on that and immediately it will break out the loop. In case it is not break out, it will, though it is matching, but it will still try to iterate all the options. That is the reason we can break the loop here. And let's try to run it and let's see whether the image link is getting clicked or not with the help of that particular option. You can see it's opening the Google page, right? After that, in case it is matching with image, it is clicking on the image link, right? You can see its image link is getting clicked. So that's why with the help of find element, you can click, you can perform some operation. Let's comment out this line of code. I think 3 or 4 topics is still there for today's session. Okay, so this is all about element locator. Then these are the different operations we can perform for Selenium WebDriver. We can get the titles with the help of get title method. We can get the page source. We can get the current URL as well, right? So okay, so let's this part open it and let's try to print the URL, right? So how can we print driver dot title? We will be getting the title. What is the method name? Driver dot get title. So you no need to you can get title. Similar way, you can get the current URL of the page. Okay, once the page is open, get driver dot get current URL, and usually you can get the page source also, right? So let's try to run it. After and also I need to give another bracket. Okay, so you will get the title of the page once the Google page is open. Also you can get the title in the console. You can print it out with the help of this command. So get title, get page source, and get current URL. These are the three important methods available in the Selenium WebDriver. Okay, so let's close it. Let's see whether the title is getting printed or not, because this is the page title. Because if you open the Google page, this is the title of the page, right? And this is the URL of the page. So this is the URL you are opening here. You can see here the URL is coming also. So that's why we can try to perform the operations: get title, get page source, and the get current source, current URL. Then this is the most API command, right? So get I already showed you. So with the help of get, you can navigate to the intended web page, right? Driver.get, you need to provide the URL in the double bracket. And driver.close, you can close the browser. Driver.quit, in case there's a multiple browser, you can quit it, right? Driver to navigate to, instead of get also you can use the navigate.to from navigating from the one URL to another. In case we want to navigate back to the previous URL, we can use navigate.back. Again we can need to navigate forward again, so we can use navigate.forward to move a single item forward in the browser history. And manage.window I already showed you, right, to maximize the focus browser. And navigate.refresh, sometimes if the page is not refreshed properly, you can use that one to refresh the content of the current page. So I'll show you how you can use it. Okay, so let's first I can get it, right? Then I will be navigate to another URL. So driver dot navigate, right, dot to, and here I will need to provide the URL name. So any URL I want to open here, instead of Google I want to go to Yahoo URL, yahoo.com. So So that's URL you can provide here, right? So I want to go to that URL, right? Okay, so that page will open. Okay, then again you can print the title of the page. So each and every page you can print the titles. After that you can navigate back, diver dot navigate, right, dot back, right. So it will navigate back to again Google page. Again you can print the titles. Again you can navigate forward, driver dot navigate forward. So means again it will be going to the Google page. So you can again print the title. Okay, and after that again you can refresh the page, right? So driver dot refresh. So navigate dot refresh. Yeah, you can refresh the page, and after that you can quit or close the driver. Driver dot close. So driver will be closed. Whatever driver has been opened, it will be closed. So that is the operation you are performing, right? Okay, if you do not, if you want to alignment, just click on the source button. Okay, there is a format option is there. It will be formatted. Okay, the code will be formatted. Okay, source, select the code and click on the format option. It will be formatted automatically. So we are opening Google page, right? We are then again navigating to another page, Yahoo page. We are navigating back again to the Google page. Again we are navigating forward to the Yahoo page. Again we are refreshing the page and closing the option. So that is the different type of operation we can perform with the help of API commands available in Selenium Web Developer for the browser. Let's try to run as Java applications. So you can see first opening the Google page, then it is opening the navigate to Yahoo page, right? Once the Yahoo page is loaded, it will navigate back to Google page again, right? Then it will navigate forward to Yahoo page again. So that's after that it will try to refresh the page and then it will close the browser. So that is the operation it will perform. Okay, you can see it is trying to closing the browser. So that is the operation is fine, right? You can see all the thing is there, right? So that's why you can try to perform the different operations, okay, for with the help of different API commands. So one is get, we can get the browser URL. With the help of navigate to also you can get it. You can with the help of close or quit, you can quit the browser. You can navigate forward, refresh and navigate back. You can maximize the window. Then I will show you what are the different operations we can perform, right, for a particular. Before the web edit box, I will show you what are the different operations we can perform for a link. Okay, let's comment it out this thing. Okay, so suppose say I want to click on the Google link, right? Let's close the Yahoo part. Suppose say for the Google page I want to click on the Gmail link. Before that I want to check all the properties also, right? So I will be using the link text for the Gmail. So that is already written here. Okay, so I will be using that. So directly you can link it, right? Definitely click it, or you can store in some web element, right? Because return type of the find element is web element. So I will be storing in web element. Suppose say web element link is Gmail. So that I instead of writing that lines of code multiple times, I will be using that option. No suggestions available. Web element. Driver dot, okay, sorry, that part will not be there. click part will not be there. We need to identify the element first. Okay, you can see that web element I have identified first. This is the part, right? With the help of link test, I have identified the element Gmail. Now, whatever properties actions we can perform on the thing, we can check whether it's enabled or not, whether the link is displayed. First, we will check whether the link is displayed or not. After that is displayed, we will check whether the link is enabled or not. If it is disabled, we are not able to click it, so there is no point. In case it is enabled, we will click it. So these are the different things we can perform, right? So first I will check whether the Gmail is displayed or not, right? So Gmail dot is displayed, right? Is displayed. So it will give you true or false. So similarly, if it is displayed, after displayed, it is enabled or not, the link dot is enabled. If it is a checkbox, you can check whether it is selected or not, right? If it is a radio button, you can select, check it. But if it is a link, only we can check whether it is displayed or not, whether it is enabled or not. Once it is displayed or enabled, we can perform click on that option. So Gmail dot click. So that's why instead of writing the same line of code multiple times, we can store the properties in some web element. Then with the help of that variables, we can call multiple actions, right? So let's save it and let's try to run it and let's see how what are the property it is showing for these two, is displayed, is enabled, and whether that link is getting clicked or not. So it will open the page, it will check the properties whether it is enabled, whether it is visible or not, and it will click on that option. So you can see it's getting clicked, and in the output you can see, right, for the two system out, right, it is getting, you can see it's true, right? That means it is displayed, it is enabled, and then it is getting clicked, right? So similar way, okay, so suppose say in the Google page I want to enter some value, okay, here, so you need to inspect it first, okay. You can see the name is Q, okay. With the help of name keyword I can inspect it, right? So these are the property I want to show it from web edit field, okay. So what we need to do, with the help of send key we can enter value in the editable text, we can get attribute, we can validate whether it's displayed or not, we can check whether it's enabled or not, we can clear the value whatever we are entering it, right? So let's first try to identify the element with the help of some attribute. Once the page is loaded, so I will be search text, the variable name I am giving as search text text. So you need to give some relevant, and that element I am identifying with the help of name is Q. So I can identify with the help of name, right? Once it is identified, similar way I can check whether it's displayed or not. That search text dot is displayed first, second is enabled or not, because this is a text field, is displayed, then is enabled, right? Then I can enter some value here, right? Search text dot send keys, right? Suppose I want to enter some value, suppose say selenium, right? After that I want to clear the value, right? So search key dot clear, so that value will be cleared, right? Again I can enter some other value, right? Instead of selenium it will be selenium automation. Okay, and it will be too fast here, so we can add some thread time, okay, so that it will be wait for some time, okay. Thread dot sleep, okay. So with the help of thread dot sleep we can wait for some time, so we can see the impactance, right? But in the real time code you should not use the thread, okay, because it will wait sometimes, okay. That's why it will wait for some times, okay. So similarly for the next line of code also, After clearing also I will be giving some time, so that you can see that it's waiting for 3 seconds. After that it is again entering that Selenium automation. So but in the real time, just I have added the set.sleep to let you know that it is waiting for 3 seconds, entering the value Selenium, it is waiting for 3 seconds, it is clearing the value. After that it is again entering the Selenium automation, right? So that is the thing, it will be done by the system, by the code, whatever lines we have written, right? Let's try to run it. So it will first open the browsers, it will launch the Google page, it will identify the search text box, it will show it displayed or not, is visible or not, right? And it will enter value Selenium, you can see. After it will clear the value, you can see it's clearing, again it will enter other value Selenium automation, right? So it is working properly. So with the 3 second delay, right? So you can see output is coming as true and true, because it's displayed and enabled. The last one here, I want to let you know what are the different attributes available in the web page if you want to print those attributes, right? So let's comment it out, those part. So how can you get the attribute? So definitely you have already got the search text attribute here, I mean variable created, right? So SOI SO, then give the variable name dot get attribute, right? And whatever attribute you want to print, you need to give the attribute name here, right? So this is the different attribute, right? Class is one attribute for the field, you can get the value here. If you want to get the type, it will be give you text. If you want to get the name, it will be give you value q, right? Similar way. Let's try to get type attribute here or class attribute here, right? So you can get the value is type typ, and you can get the value here. Similar way, if you want to print the other attribute like that, so you can print all the attribute one by one. So I am timing the type, then I can want to get the name, class, name, and the class attribute I want to print it out. So this, in case it is text box, you can get all the attribute, title. So whatever attribute is there, you can get it, right? Title, and name is already there, I have taken it, right? Any kind of other attribute if you want to take it for the field, right? You can get it, whatever is there here. Okay, suppose I want to get other one, autocorrect attribute. Okay, so this is the attribute and all are value. So class is the value, JS action is the value, this is the value attribute, type is the attribute, value is text, name is the attribute, value is q. So you can print out everything. Let's try to run it, let's see the output, the attribute. So you can see this printing, and definitely it will be identifying all the attribute and it will be print, give you. Okay. You can see the attribute is coming right here. The first one attribute is type, which is nothing but the text. It is coming from here, text. Then the name is q, right? Then the class name is like that only, whatever we have given here, class name, right? Then the title is search, autocorrect is off, right? You can see all the thing is coming, right? Autocorrect is off. Okay, so that's why you can perform different operation for the web edit field, right? Okay, so the link already covered. So this is the topic for today's session, whatever I have tried to cover here. So okay, so this is the topics. I think hopefully you have everybody got it. What is software testing all about? What is error, fault, failure? How error can occur? 7 principles, automation testing concept, life cycle, different testing tools, component of Selenium, advantage and disadvantage of Selenium, advantage of Selenium WebDriver, difference between Selenium with EF2 and Silk, the prerequisite. First you need to install JDK or Java, then any of the IDE, Eclipse or IntelliJ IDE, then Selenium WebDriver jar file, then different browser for your different driver for your different browser, right? Chrome driver, Gecko driver or iDriver, right? Then you need to launch the Eclipse, you need to set the workspace, you need to create a project, you need to create a package, and when you create a class, you need to associate the Selenium jar file into your project, right? After that, you can set up the properties for the Chrome diver or Firefox browser. You can perform the operation, and you can locator. You can definitely try to identify element with the help of ID, name, class name, tag name, link, or partial link text. In case nothing is there, you can go with CSS selector on Expert. You can get the different web page operation: get title, get page source, get current URL. You can do the important API commands or use the API command. You can get the URL, you can close the browsers, you can navigate from one page to another page, you can navigate back and forward again, you can refresh the page, you can maximize the page. And in case it is a web edit field, right, with the help of different properties, you can identify it, you can send some keys, you can get attribute, you can check whether the web edit field displayed or enabled or not, and in case you are entering some value, you can clear the value as well. And in case it is a link or hyperlink, definitely first you can check whether it is displayed or not, it is enabled or not. In case it is enabled and displayed, you can click on the link. Okay, so that's all for today's session. We'll meet on tomorrow. Thank you.